We are going to begin weaving using our clay loom that we made last time. Our clay loom, yours will be glazed. Mine just didn't have enough time to get glazed before I needed to show you how to weave. You're going to have your clay loom, some masking tape, a safety needle, one of these rectangular strips of paper, and then some yarn. To start out, you're going to take one of the yarn monsters and you're going to pick two colors or two strips from the yarn monsters. The reason we're needing two is because the strips are not long enough. I recommend choosing the same color. I have chosen gray for mine. I'm going to take my yarn strips and I'm going to put the two ends together and we're going to tie them together. I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay, we're going to take the two ends and I'm going to pull out in my hand here. So I've got a good section kind of holding out here. And I'm going to take that and I'm going to go around my finger. And once I go around, I'm going to hold on to them where they meet. See how they kind of make an X on my finger? I'm going to hold that with my thumb. Okay? So now I have a loop around my finger and I have these strips hanging off the end. Okay? In order to make this work, I need to pull this finger out. I'm not going to let go, but I'm going to slide it back so that way the tip of my finger and my thumb are going to be holding on where my yarn crisscrosses. And sometimes you can slip it back. I hold on to the loop here and I just slide my finger back so that way my fingertip and my thumb are now pinched over that spot where they meet, and I've got my strips here and I've got my loop. Okay? We're going to pretend that these are bunny ears and this is the bunny burrow. We're going to take the bunny and he is frightened. He wants to go back inside his burrow. So we're going to take him and we're going to fold him under so that way he's hooked up with the loop. We're going to pull those bunny ears through our bunny burrow. If I can get him to go. There we go. It's a little tricky sometimes. Okay, so now my bunny ears are through my bunny burrow. I'm going to take those bunny ears and I'm going to pull tight. While I pull, I can let go now because I made my loop. And I'm going to pull this tight. As I do that, I'm going to actually try to slide my knot toward the end of my strings as close as I can. Pull the strings tight, pull the knot tight, do all of that. Now my two strings are knotted together. Okay, I'm going to take the end of one of my yarn now, and I'm going to fold it over so that it is inside this little strip of paper. I'm going to close the strip of paper, and now that strip of paper slides into my needle, the eye of my needle, and I pull it out while I hold the yarn so that way I can thread it very easily. I'm going to pull the yarn through so that I have a good piece hanging off the end. Okay? Do not tie this yarn to the needle. It makes this part of the needle too big and it will not go through the holes in your loom. Okay? What I'm going to do here is I'm going to turn my loom over and I'm going to notice where I've got a good open space on my loom that's not touching one of the holes, and I've got a good open space right here. So I'm going to use this hole to start with so that I can tape the end of my string back here. So to make sure that the back of the other end of my string, the other end of my string that's not attached to the needle ends up on the back, I'm going to find that hole I said I was going to use, and I'm going to come up from underneath, and every time I hold the needle, I pinch my yarn right here so it doesn't come unwoven. And I'm going to pull that through all the way, pull my knot through everything until all I have is a little bit of my string left over underneath. Okay, I'm going to set my needle down, carefully turn it over, take a piece of the masking tape, and I'm going to tape down my strip of yarn here, like so. Okay, make sure you got a good piece of your yarn that's going to be taped down. Really press it down so it doesn't come off. All right, pick up your needle, hold it where the yarn is pinched on there. Okay, all right, so this is how my loom is going to be held. When I do this, I'm going to take my yarn, since I'm on top, and I'm going to come across the street. When you come across the loom, I call it coming across the street because I've got a phrase I'm going to say to help you out. When you come across, you're going to notice that you have on one side of the yarn 4 holes and you have 3 holes. Okay, or you have more on this side and less on this side. That's important to notice, and I always forget that when I start this. So I'm going to take my needle, since my yarn is on top, that tells me I'm gonna come down through the top of my loom, grab my needle where my yarn is, and I need to pull all the way through so that way my yarn is nice and tight, okay? All right, now we're gonna start weaving, and I need to end up so that way the last place my yarn is gonna come through is it's gonna come up through the side that has the 4 holes. So I need to think about this. If I start and I go on the side with the 3, I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I don't know if that's gonna work. Let me figure this out. I think I've got this figured out. So my yarn here is underneath. I'm gonna come across to the side that has only 3 holes or the fewest number of holes. I'm going to, this side has 4, this side has 3. So since my yarn is underneath, here's the phrase I'm gonna say. I'm trying to bake some cookies and I'm out of sugar. So when I need sugar, wherever I started, I go across the street, I go into that neighbor's house like I've done, okay? I'm in their house and I say, do you have any sugar? And they say, no, I don't have any sugar. Get out of my house. So what you're gonna do is the side that has the fewest number of holes, we're gonna go next door to that neighbor, because I'm on the back, so I'm gonna go next door, and I'm gonna come up, and I'm gonna go into their house. So now my yarn is on top. I've gone into their house and I say, do you have any sugar? And they say, no, I don't have any sugar. So I said, okay, fine. I'll try it across the street again. So since my yarn is on top, that tells me I need to go across the street. So I'm gonna go across my loom and I'm gonna go into that neighbor's house. I'm gonna go all the way in, pull my string tight, okay? I'm gonna ask that neighbor, hey, you got any sugar? And they say, no, I don't have any sugar. Get out of my house, okay? My yarn is on the back side. When it's on the back side, I go next door to the next neighbor and I go into their house all the way in. And I say, hey, do you have any sugar? And they go, no, get out of my house. Well, my yarn is on top now, so I'm gonna try to go back across the street. And I'm not gonna go over here because that puts my yarn too far away from this center X here. So I'm gonna come this way. It's not exact, but it's much closer. So I'm gonna go across the street to my neighbor's house and I'm gonna go all the way into their house and I say, yo, you got any sugar? And they say, no, I don't have any sugar. Get out of my house. So since I'm on the back side of my loom, I'm gonna go next door to my neighbor's house. And I'm gonna go all the way into their house and I say, yo, you got any sugar? And they go, no, get out of my house. All right, fine. I'm across the street, or I'm on top of my loom, it's where my yarn is, so I'm gonna go across the street. When I go across the street, notice how most of my yarn is going through the center of my loom here. I go into that neighbor's house, all the way in. I say, yo, please, some sugar. And they go, no, I don't have any sugar. Get out of my house. Well, my yarn is now in the back, so I'm gonna go try again next door. Notice how I have ended at my last hole and I've ended on that hole, so I come up through the top. That is very important. We want to end your weaving or end the creation of your loom here with our yarn on top, okay? In order to do that, that first line that you make across, you're gonna have more of your holes on one side and fewer on the other. Once you've made that first line across, you need to go next door to the one with the fewest, so that way you end on the side that has the most, okay? So now my yarn is on top. I am ready to begin weaving. Okay, to begin weaving, you have a few options. First thing is, I still have all of this yarn left over from my warp strips, okay? You have a couple of things that you can do. One is that we can cut this off and attach a new piece of string to it of a different color, or you're already threaded, you're already ready to go. You can just start weaving with it, which is what I'm going to do. Okay, so when we begin weaving, you should not really need to pick up or turn over your loom, okay? If you want to hold it in your hand, you can. I recommend it still holding it close to your table So that way if it drops, it doesn't have far to go and hopefully it won't break, okay? You can also leave it flat on your table because the reason is you have a gap between the table surface and your yarn that you can slip your needle in and over through, okay? Just like we've always done with our paper weaving, we're going to tell ourselves over and under. And I'm going to do that now. Instead of going horizontally like we've done in the past, I'm going to do it in a circle around my loom, okay? I'm going to get us started and then I'll show you what we're going to do. All right, my string is out of this hole, so I'm going to start over here on this one. And the reason why I'm starting on this one is because I'm right-handed. If I was left-handed, it makes more sense to start over here, but I'm right-handed. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to go under, over, under. Do 3 strings, and then you're going to pull your yarn all the way across, okay? I'm not pulling it to the center just yet. I will get there. This first part is the trickiest to get going because you don't really have a center created yet. You have the illusion of a center. We're going to make it. So I'm going to rotate my loom around, okay? The last string that I went under is this one right here. So I'm under. So that means I need to go over, under, over, okay? And I'm going to pull it all the way. And when I pull it, I'm going to pull it so that it kind of pulls everything kind of to the center, but I'm not pulling it super tight yet, okay? The last string that I went under is this one, so I need to go over the next one. Over, under, over, under. I'm going to do 4 just because that's how I roll. Now, this one's really, really loose because that's the string that I'm working with. So when I do this, I kind of have to pull. There's my string. Okay, there's my string. It's attached to this one since I'm going under it. I'm going to pull it from over here so that way when I pull my yarn, I can make sure it's going in the right spot. Now what it's done is it's pulled tight. Let me see if I can zoom in. It's pulled tight around that center. It's kind of pulling it, so it's pulling all of those pieces of string together. I want to pull tight, but I'm not trying to pull it so that it, I'm not trying to kill it. I don't want to pull anything out. So I'm just trying to pull it kind of tight, but I still want to find out where the last string is that I'm under so I know where to begin next. Okay. The last string I went under is this one. I'm going to kind of pull it tight a little. So I went under, so I need to go over, under, over, under. I always like to end on an under. It just makes my world easier. Okay, I'm going to pull that, and this time I can pull it kind of tight. I don't got to go crazy, but I'm going to pull it kind of tight. These extra string here, we're going to cut these off a little bit, so don't worry about those. Okay? But now you'll notice that it's starting to kind of collect here around the center. That's what we want. All right, I am under this one, or excuse me, I'm under this one, so I need to go over, under, over, under. Okay, as I do this, I have to look. Are my strings alternating? So let's look here. Okay, if I zoom in, here's the center. This is the last piece that I went under. If I look closely here at this string right here, which was what I did first, I'll notice that it's on top of this piece of string. If it's on top of it and I'm now under it, that means I'm weaving correctly. I haven't accidentally skipped a string or realized that I don't have an odd number, that I have an even number, so it should continue to go around. I'm going to kind of hold these out of the way. All right, so I'm over the top of this one. I'm under there, over, under, over, under, and then I pull tight, okay? Notice I'm continuing to turn my loom so I can always see where I'm at. Under, over, under, over, under. And I'm continuing, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm gonna continue to weave. Let me zoom out so you guys can see a little bit more. Sorry. All right. So I'm under, over, under, over, under. Every time I do those 4 strings, I'm going to pull tight. Okay, and under there, I'm going to go over, under, over, under. And I'm going to continue to do this until my gray yarn here starts to run out. Some of you, this is going to go pretty easy. You're going to go, oh, I totally understand this, because a lot of times once you get past this very few couple of times around, things start moving and grooving, and you are able to see a little bit better of what you are doing, and that is always helpful. Things start to become a little bit clearer as you continue to work. Okay, I'm going to stop using the gray, and I'm going to show you how to attach another piece of yarn, and then I'm going to continue to weave to finish it up. Okay, before I attach another piece of yarn, I'm going to get rid of these. Now that everything's well established here in the middle, I don't need that anymore. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to cut it. I'm not going to cut it right up against my knot. I'm going to leave a little bit of a tail, or I guess a little bit of my bunny ears left. And to hide that, we're going to take this knot, and I can help you with this, but what we're going to end up doing is I'm going to end up pushing that knot down in through my woven strips so that it's hiding underneath. Okay. All right. Okay. Let's add a new piece of yarn here. Okay. To add a new piece of yarn, you're going to take the yarn monster and you're going to pick one color of yarn. I'm going to go with pink. Okay. And I'm going to, first of all, unthread my needle, and I'm going to cut my piece of yarn a little bit shorter. Okay. So I have still got a tail here, and just like we did to tie our two strings together before, that's what we're going to do to attach our pink and our gray strip together. So I'm going to take the two ends of my yarn. This gets a little trickier because I don't have as much to work with, but I'm going to pinch it in between my two fingers, make a loop around, so then I can hold them there where they touch, take those bunny ears, tuck them inside the burrow, and then pull tight. Now, if you want to, before you begin weaving, you can go ahead and cut off these little strips here. If you do that, don't cut right up against the knot. Cut out a little bit, because if you cut right up against the knot, you're going to end up cutting part of your knot, and it's going to come undone. You're going to have to retie it. Okay, so now I have my gray, my pink. I'm going to take the open end of my yarn, put it inside my piece of paper, rethread, good section going through, and now I'm ready to begin weaving again. Okay, so I know I ended up using a lot of pieces of string. My string is just not cut as long as I would like it to, but it's already cut, so it works well. Okay, so I have three colors here. I have my warp color, the part that I did for my loom. I have a second color, which is pink, and my third color, which is blue. You need to have at least three colors, okay? It is okay if you have a gap around the edge. It's okay if that gap is uneven as well. Remember, we didn't do any measuring really when we did this, so that is a-okay. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna end up tying this string to one of these pieces here, okay? And I can definitely help you with this, but I wanna go ahead and show you so that way if you are at home and wanna do it at home, you'll know what to do. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a loop around that string so that my gray piece is actually through my blue loop here, and I'm gonna stick the end of my blue loop through, and when I tie it, I'm gonna try to push my knot down close to my weaving as much as I can. So what I did basically was this blue string here, I tied it to the gray one, okay? So I've just tied them together, and I can slide it down so that it kind of hides itself underneath my weaving. You can see all of my knots are hidden on the back. I know this one pokes out here a little bit, but that's okay. All right, so since this is tied, I'm gonna cut it off, but I'm not gonna cut it off super close. You're gonna have a little bit of a piece hanging off here, and that's okay because everybody's gonna have it. Be careful when you do this that you don't actually cut one of your warp pieces. So there is my weaving, and we're gonna end up taking some of the extra pieces of string, and we're gonna end up taking it and putting it through our hole up here to hang it from. We're gonna tie those two ends together, make a loop there, pull it down so that I've got a kind of a loop here, cut off a little bit of the extra part of my string, and there is my loom.